Well, we're all learning. I'm not an expert yet, but we're all learning. So yeah, it's evolving. Yeah,
It's relative, isn't it? If
yeah,
you
it
think
is.
about
It
it,
is.
any expertise is relative.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? Because pre-pandemic, we could have been an expert in many things,
True.
which we now, what we need now and in the future to meet our needs.
Yeah.
It's very different. So Laura, before we get going, tell us a bit about yourself and your background.
Well, I'm a human being. That's the most important thing to know. I'm a musician, love music. I play a couple of instruments now. Start off on piano and then went to a little bit of guitar. People laugh at me when I play drums, and I'm starting on on saxophone at the moment. Besides for that, academically, I have a doctorate in information systems, and I feel that it's important as a practitioner. Sometimes you're in the educational environment, and a lot of times you have to get out of it in order to see what's going on. And so this is a very exciting time to just be in the environment, actually doing something. For fun, I own a nonprofit organization. It is called ROL Cat Productions, and we are the managers of Lighthouse Broadcasting, and that's where I'm broadcasting from today. And I'm so happy again to be here. Our focus at Lighthouse Broadcasting is on mental illness and just dealing with the stigma associated with mental illness.
Great, great, and we will touch on that at some point because our theme: creativity, well-being, progression, and the
Yeah.
metaverse. So, what are the components of the metaverse?
The main components of a metaverse environment, you will have some sort of augmented or virtual reality, extended reality. Um, the reality is designed to have the individual be immersed in the environment, but more importantly, a metaverse environment will have blockchain, which is more of a financial aspect. So those are the main components of a metaverse environment. For it to be a true metaverse, for it to be like a true metaverse slash Web3 environment, you will have blockchain. In addition to these other items that I just mentioned.
Okay, and why was the metaverse created, and what problem does the creation of the metaverse itself solve?
Well, if you can think of the Web 2 environment, which is the GUI interface that we deal with that we call the internet, one of the biggest challenges and biggest things that people are making a lot of money off of is hacking and people taking folks' identities, identity theft, that sort of thing. So, blockchain is the thing that really helps to verify these transactions so that we know that we're dealing with the right person. And so, the real problem that the metaverse solves is that of encryption and hacking and so it's the verification of transactions, whether they're identity or financial, etc.
Okay, okay. So we're in the midst of a technological revolution. What are the spiritual values and mindset required to contend with these facts of life as they are now?
Well, and a lot of this is my opinion and my conjecture, but it also it resonates with a few of the groups that I'm connected to in certain environments. I believe that I believe the pandemic has been successful in backing organizations in general into a corner, and that corner being at home, being away, being and so it created disruption in the way that we do business. And disruptions are in my world, disruptions are good. I consider myself a disruptor in the music and arts and entertainment field. So from a technology standpoint, disruption is good because we find new and innovative ways to do things. So if now you are a church or you're an organization that provides spiritual guidance for people, the thing that you now need to consider is how do you achieve engagement, and so anybody that wants to achieve any form of engagement needs to consider what the Web3 environment can do to help people, or the metaverse environment can help to help people to remain engaged. Um, Again, the pandemic had people be separated away from the face-to-face environment. Now
Yeah.
with things like Oculus and Vive, and even in some cases uh, augmented reality glasses, and a lot of these things have been around for a very long time. It's just that it's hit mainstream now, and so it's a factor because we've had a disruption. And so, in
Yeah.
order for religious organizations or anyone to stay cutting edge, they're going to have to go to that target base that's already in this world, in this particular world or verse, metaverse.
And
And yeah, go
that's
ahead.
we're now here. So, in a sense, you're talking about relationships
Yes.
and how to rebuild.
Mm-hmm. How to
But
maintain,
also
how to maintain
maintain,
relationships.
but there are people in isolation.
Yeah.
But also from a system point of view, where historically there may have been system indifference to the needs of people. Because if
Yes.
you weren't in the physical space, then we didn't necessarily know you were there.
Right.
Or if there were inequalities, there wasn't necessarily a plan to actually address those inequalities. And of course, a pandemic has brought many of those things to the surface.
Yeah. You see this everywhere, even in it's been in education, and I might talk a lot more about education environments where, um, engagement, and how are you really getting engagement? How do you know that you're really getting the person that you're talking to? So it's everywhere, and it's just, and so of course with churches and anything that required people to be connected. If you're in an environment Web 2 that you weren't sure already if you were getting the right person, because of things like encryption and identity theft, then I'm not saying that Web3 makes it better because people come as avatars and that sort of thing, but a true Web3 environment is one that is verifiable. And so that's what people need to strive towards in terms of relationships, because then you are dealing with the person that you've always known. So there are things that demark them. How can I tell that I'm speaking to Rudy Page? Well, I could see you. Okay, if I didn't see you, how could I know that it's you? Your voice print, your mannerisms. And so there are some things associated with your characteristics that will become meta, and those meta will be verified over time, and that's how we will know who we're dealing with in this Web3 space. And same thing with churches. I mean, churches or any religious type organization, we have to get past the way that we have been engaging with people, where you have to come to a location. You have to get past the physical location and now begin thinking about, how do I engage beyond the location?
Absolutely. So we now have access to powerful new media and tokens as means of creating currencies and economic value. Where do you think we should start our learning?
In terms of tokens and our learning, you mean as far as all of us as a collective?
It's the whole landscape, because we're now saying to people, and we always talk about the 21st century skills of collaboration, creativity, communication, critical thinking. So we now have to apply that mindset to these new media. The means of communication has changed significantly post-pandemic, but the needs haven't changed, as
Right.
we've just touched on there.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, then we have these tokens now, so we have new means of currency and to exchange, creating economic value, as you mentioned earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
So the basic question is, where does the population, the different groups at their different levels of education, start their learning?
Well, my initial they're learning in general, or they're learning about the metaverse, because there are two different things.
All right, but okay, let's just talking about the learning to enter a pathway.
Okay.
Because one of the challenges, which I guess will come from those who are there to teach, is that we've got to ensure the barriers are low enough, so we don't ask people, where do you want me to start the learning? If somebody says, well, I need to learn.
Right.
So what's the lowest barrier? What's the lowest level that people can come in and with their creativity they'll go as far to achieve their potential? So to my mind, this is the new advantage that we now have compared to the old ways, where learning systems were also used as barriers for entry.
Okay, so this is a loaded question, so I'm going to break it up into two segments. Okay, so first segment is barriers to entry. So the truth is, a person can enter a metaverse world now. There are software, as long as you have a computer, and in some cases a mobile phone. People can actually enter the metaverse environment. There is a website called Alt Space VR. That's ALT space, V as in Victor, R as in Robert. Alt Space VR will enable people to download on a Windows and on a Mac platform access to be able to go into alternative spaces. One of the advantages of Alt Space VR is that you, as an individual with just a computer, can engage with someone that actually has the Oculus glasses. So you're in the environment. As long as everybody agrees they're in the environment. And there are plenty of groups out there on Alt Space VR at the moment. I would just strongly encourage that if a person goes out to Alt Space VR, that they are going either with people that they know or going to places that they've been specifically invited to. There are comedy clubs currently out there. There are churches that are out there. Right now, you can go to a church service on a Sunday. There's quite a few churches out there. So again, for people that feel isolated, they can go into these spaces. Of course, one of the first things that you're going to do when you get into an Alt Space VR environment is you're going to create your own avatar, your own image. So you'll go in and you'll look like a little thing that's moving around, and there are some keys on your keyboard that will enable you to move. Those keys look like the A, W, S, D, and E keys. You can also use your space bar and your up and down and right left arrows to move around in the environment. And I guess if there was one disadvantage with Alt Space VR, I'm going to tell you. With Alt Space VR, if you're entering from a PC standpoint, and it could vary between the PC and the Mac. I've entered it with a Mac environment. There's an issue with volume control. What ends up happening is that you have people that go into the Alt Space VR, they create these rooms. These rooms are the place that people go to engage. And then when you enter the room, there is an option to put that person's voice on broadcast. If that person's voice is on broadcast, it will be louder than anything else that you hear if you're entering from a PC environment. When people have the Oculus glasses, they can control the sound well. People that don't have those glasses, you have to succumb to whatever the noise and the sound barriers are. So that's just something to consider for people that go into the Alt Space environment. The other, there's one more called Spatial.io. Spatial.io. That is another metaverse environment that people could enter from their computers. You can also enter from some cell phones as well. You can download the Spatial app, and that enables people to enter a metaverse environment and engage. People do art shows, so you can walk through art galleries and things of that nature in that environment. Okay, so that's one phase of engagement, and the walls being lowered and broken down. As far as education is concerned and tokens, which is the second part of the question, that slope is interesting because the idea of education tokens has been around for a long period of time. teachers have used tokens to reward for good behavior in an environment. And so I'm going to say something to you is probably going to trigger some more discussion, but um, tokens show up when there is disruption. And it's always been a way to control disruption. And so in a sophisticated education environment, those tokens have maybe rubric classifications like modes of behavior in order to receive the rewards for the behavior. That being said, for people to use token or tokenomics or create a token economy, that token economy will eventually, if done right, pull together a group of people that have like interests that, and it could be gaming, it could be anything that like people that have like interests. Token economies are the things that help to build and maintain communities. And I'll just say in a nutshell, if you could probably have more question, more discussion about this. The key is not only relationship, but maintaining the engagement. If you can't maintain the engagement, then the tokens are valueless.
Yeah, because the reason why I think the token will be important in the future, if we look at particularly Caribbean population group, in the UK, they used to have a partner system, and it's quite obvious to some of us that that partner system can now be translated through tokens into this metaverse world.
Right.
But that's a subject for another time.
Yeah, we can definitely have a partner discussion. And again,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think the people of the 22nd and 23rd centuries will think about us and our approach to solving the problems of our time?
Well, first of all, assuming that our broadcast is carried forward into the Web3 space where people can see it beyond this time, which that's doable. I think the first thing to consider is that people in that decade or in that time, they might be pleased that we chose to engage and have the discussion and share and consider the possibilities. As practitioners, as a practitioner yourself, you are definitely a relationship builder. You've built relationships for decades, and they've been successful and they've been maintained. And so verifying those relationships now and continuing that effort, it's the story. It's the economy. Your relationships is the economy. People think it's money. They think it's all this other stuff, and really the currency is relationship. That's the main thing. That's the main thing that I want to say. Yeah.
Right. So in a sense, then, those looking back at us should be able to identify the relationships that we built up over this time.
Yes.
We could think about the importance of building long term, and of course, these are built on origin, identity, culture, cultural learning, cultural communications.
Yeah.
Generations following us.
There's so much to be said about cultural learning, because that in itself is a demographic that's already segmented, and you can't fake a cultural nuance. Yeah. And people that are familiar with the cultural nuance, they know. So the currency is relationships. It's the exchange. It's the exchange. The token is really the exchange of that relationship. And again, today there's a heightened awareness of tokens and the exchange of what it means. Like, okay, well, I can get an NFT. I can get. You can get those things, but really, The token, the economy is based on a continual relationship utility. Like, what is it that we're exchanging? How long do we get to exchange that? Hopefully forever. And hopefully it goes down through the generations as well, if we're talking culture.
Yeah. So we now have an opportunity to do that with this, the new media and what we can now access.
I think so. And if done correctly, it should lead us to go back and pull all the things that were created already. If we want to have longevity in everything that we've done beyond our life and beyond our impact, then it behooves us to go back and make relevant the things that can continue to pave forward a path so that others following could get a clear sense of where they're supposed to go, what they're supposed to do, how do we get here,
You actually, just before we end, you actually raise a good point in terms of going back to the cultural learning point, because each generation now are currently learning more about the past, or have learned more about their past within a greater historical context in the last couple of years and maybe the previous 30 years, or so. Yeah. So, and again, all of that can feed into where we're heading in the future as well, can't it?
I would think so. And I think there's something very authentic with a true a true path to the past. And again, there may be some blurred lines in the Web 2 space that we really have the opportunity to correct and make right in a Web 3 space, through definitions, through knowledge management, through a variety of things that can help provide a path that is verifiable, that is substantial. And I mean, we don't have to make things hard in the knowledge space for others that are following.
And you raise a good point there about verification, because we're now in a verify historical facts in a way that, again, we haven't been able to over generations.
Yeah.
Again, topic for another day. Right. Thank you very much for that. And it's a great introduction to our World Intellectual Property Day. I'm really pleased. And if there's any last point that you want to make in particular as it relates to Lighthouse Broadcasting, this is your great opportunity.
Oh, well, we are on multiple platforms: Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, Android, and we're also a mobile app on the Android and the iPhone. You can look for Lighthouse Broadcasting LBTV. Download the app; it's a free download. On that app and on those programs, you'll find information about mental health, mental illness, and one of the areas of specialty that I have is how we as artists, whether it's music, drama, whatever, how we as artists use the arts to help people cope with issues associated with mental health, mental illness. We have a spotlight channel that kind of explains some of the things that we're focused on, and there's a lot of definitions on some of the channels that help people understand some of the modalities in mental health and mental illness. And again, we want to help erase the stigma associated with mental illness.
Yeah, and we certainly look forward to working with you closely as we bring our community wellness dialogues onto your platform. And then and particularly our focus is on the way our communities face their challenges and how they overcome some of those challenges for the well-being of themselves and society as a whole. So a lot of that will be sharing that, and we have what we call our trusted messenger model,
Yeah, you've done a tremendous amount for a long time in this area, writing, teaching, connecting people across the diaspora, and I'm really pleased about the opportunity to work with you. I've been following for a long time, and I don't mean to make it sound. I mean, I guess we all sound old now, but but I've been following enough to know the relevance of the message and looking at the response and the way that people are engaging in this dialogue. I'm very encouraged by the idea of having discussions, because sometimes if people can actually self-identify what's going on, that's about 2/3 of the journey there.
It really is. And of course, our overall theme will be along the battlefield of the mind.
Yes.
Faith and spirituality in mental health services. And
Yeah.
And the services are the community services.
Right.
The services that we provide for ourselves. How can we improve them? How can we access them? And how can we share and be transparent in the delivery of those services? Because all of that fits into prevention. And what we want our community to do as generations go forward is to prevent us going into the various systems where once you're in the system, you're ill, and and so we want to keep people out the best way we can. But also at the same time, going back to your earlier point that if somebody is having mental ill health or challenges or wellness challenges, they should still be treated with love, compassion, and with humanity.
Yeah.
And included, because they have creative skills, and they've still got a potential to meet, as well.
Yeah. I mean, we can actually go back into the discussion about token and tokenomics, and just see that tokens were used in educational environments to reward behavior, especially in the case of people that have a mental challenge or learning disability. So tokenomics and the idea and how all of it connects, it's really an ethnographic study here, and those people that really understand the connection can really build some verifiable solutions to just help people get through, help them cope, and that's the continuing work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you make a good point as well about comparative studies and sharing and learning, comparative learning and delivery, because of course, got African and Caribbean population groups in the UK, African communities, Caribbean communities, African American communities in the US, and of course we have the Caribbean itself in terms of the diaspora. So there's a lot that can be done across the various population groups. And the other good thing, or important thing I should say, is that April is Autism Month anyway for you guys.
Yeah.
In the US.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had Wayne Hall from Atlanta talking about autism awareness at the weekend. So that was quite good. So again, we're in a position now, as we say, to join the dots.
Yeah. And
reduce the barriers for sharing, learning, building relationships based on collaboration, trust, and cooperation.
Yeah.
It's just the important thing.
I'm excited. It's an exciting time. It really is.
Right. So thank you very much, Dr. Laura
Thank
Thompson.
you for having me. I appreciate it. It's fun.
Great. See you again very soon.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. And see you again, everybody. Thank you very much. Fresh FM Radio London listeners, and we'll be back soon.